Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Punishing Dumbass Openings. This is a 10-minute rapid game I played this morning. My opponent is rated 1362, but they weren't playing at 1362 level in this particular game. So we're just going to pick out a few points of this. And quite honestly, it's not like... I don't think my opponent came out with a plan to play some dumbass opening with the black pieces. He just played shit. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to dive into this because there are some useful lessons here, okay? Now, I open, because I've got the white pieces, and I open with e4, we have e5, right? Nothing wrong with this picture so far. I play knight to c3, the Vienna game, right? It's been played before. My opponent now chooses to play pawn to a6. Now, let me just stop you here. Pawn to a6 is not the worst move on the board. And the reason I know that is because I decided to, for your benefit, I decided to try out every single possible legal move for black, I believe. And there are 29 of them, right? Of the 29, here is the list, okay? And they range from plus 0.1, which is the best, which leaves white slightly better. So plus 0.1 is basically, from this point, bringing out either knight to here. And we see this a lot, right? This one walks into the Vienna Gambit, okay? And this one is very, very typical as well, just mirroring the approach. And now there is also bishop c5 and bishop b4, okay? Bishop here, bishop here. These are plus 0.3, so slightly better for white. And then we have d6 and c6, which score plus 0.6 for white. So the point is that there are 6 better moves than this, right? Developing the knights, either one of those is the best that black can do in this position. Why? Well, we're developing knights. Knights know where to go, right? Nearly all the time, a lot of the time, knights want to come to these very natural squares, okay? Why do they want to come to these natural squares? Well, they are in the middle of the board, in this, like the big center, which means that from there they are controlling potentially 8 squares on the board. You know, some of which are behind them, but many of which are in front of them. Okay, and therefore the knight has expanded to its maximum reach on the board. Not only that, but a knight that's on its natural square is controlling 2 squares in the center, right? These 2 control these 2, and the other 2 control the other 2 squares in the center. What's more, knights pretty much know where they're going to be going from the start. You don't want to deploy your bishops immediately because you don't know if a bishop's best square is there or there or there or there, you know. Bishop could have many other squares. You need to let the board kind of start to take shape before you actually know where a bishop belongs. Now, there are, you know, exceptions to this. You might play the bishop's opening and throw out the bishop first, right? Which is setting out your intentions earlier on. But if your opponent does this, the best 2 moves, according to the machine, are knight to f6, probably slightly better according to Stockfish, ever so slightly better, and then knight to c6, okay? The other moves are these 2 pawn moves. Sorry, no. The next best is to bring your bishop out to here or here, okay? This one you're attacking the knight already and you will mess up white's pawns, or this is perfectly acceptable as well, okay? And then you've got the 2 pawn moves, right? Then, after that, you have a6. So, in the evaluation, the computer here says that a6 is good, which means it's not a dumbass move, but it's not the best, right? It's not even among the best. So what is the point of a6? So what are the benefits of it? Well, the only thing that I can really see is it stops the knight coming into b5. And then I say, well, did my knight want to come into b5 anyway? The answer is no. Okay, that is the point. And then beyond that, you've got terrible moves. Well, they get progressively terribler. You know, so h6 and then bishop e7, and the worst move of all is bishop a3, just blundering your bishop in one go. But, you know, queen g5 is pretty bad as well as pawn to g5 is quite awful, and alongside king to e7. Okay, so there are some really crap moves out there. Okay, this is not one of the crappiest, but it's not one of the best, and the point is that black here is immediately, it's what black isn't doing on this move, right? What black isn't doing on this move is controlling any more of the center than he had before, right? He isn't getting any of his minor pieces out into the board. 3 of his minor pieces can jump out into the board, and as we've seen, these are the best 4 moves. These are the best 4 moves, bringing a minor piece out in the board. Why? Because you are improving the scope and the reach and the influence over the board of one of those pieces if you do that. This is a pointless move. It also, because it is one of these pawns, it does nothing to help any of the bishops to get out into the board. I mean, this one can already get out, but this one's currently stuck in, and so you need to move one of these 2 pawns in order to release that bishop. That's why it's the 7th best move, okay? Or, to put it another way, like the 22nd least worst. Anyway, something like that. So, anyway, I have a decision, okay, and I decide to push f4. I'm thinking my opponent is already on the slow side, and I'm going to play Vienna style. Now, this is not accurate. The computer doesn't quite approve, because it's saying, well, you know, but look, I am here competing for the center, right? And also, I want to bring my knight out. The computer said actually knight f3 was the best move here. Right, but I wanted to get my pawn forward, and this is a question of style. Okay, now he brings his bishop out, and that's a mistake already, right? He said, the computer says you should just have taken the pawn. Here I take, and he recaptures. Now, important decision at this point as well. I realized I had d4, and I realized I had knight f3. Right? Both of these moves attack the bishop. One of these moves is better than the other. So I went for knight f3. The computer slightly prefers d4 by 1/10 of a pawn, right? Slightly prefers d4. But here's my thinking. I always want to get this knight move in any time this diagonal is open, right? And the point is that if I'd have played d4 here, and the queen comes out with check, I don't have g6. g6 is a mistake here, because bishop can take, and if pawn takes, you lose your bishop, you lose your rook in the corner. Okay. If I'd have done this move, and the queen comes out with check, which is the best move for black, king e7 is best. Now I don't want to start going down that route. Okay. So anyway, so I play knight f3 because it's my choice. I've got the white pieces and Stockfish hasn't. He brings out his knight. Well done. That's not terribly bad, but then I do have d4. This is the point. I have d4 and it's defended twice, and this is a position that I know quite well. This is very similar. We see almost the exact same thing when we're playing the Marcellus Wallace against the Vienna, for example. I know that when I've got my knight and my queen is there, it doesn't matter that he's got 2 pieces looking at this square, I win. Right? He can't capture because he loses a piece. So this is a move with tempo, and he's going to have to get out of it. Unless he ignores the threat against his bishop and plays queen e7, which is a dumbass move. Because I take, and he takes, and here the computer doesn't like this very much, but I decide, look, I'm already winning, okay? I'm already a piece up for a pawn. I want to get my bishop out of the way. And now he pushes h6, right? Now, there are the three best moves here, according to the machine, I'm just looking now, are d6, they are knight f6, because we haven't developed our knights yet, and also knight takes d3. Okay, they're the best moves, and this is just terrible. This is like 4 pawns worse than any of those moves, right? Why? I have no idea whatsoever. So I castle, he brings out his knight, I decide to trade off. I hit his queen now, also hitting c7 behind. And the queen comes to here with check. So I move my king out of the way. I move a pawn, sorry, he moves his pawn up to d6. And now, okay, so let's just rewind a little bit. He moves his queen here. This is not the best move. He should have put his queen here if he wants to give check. Why? Because queen c5 check is actually the best move here. Because of this, right? There, I move out the way, and now we have a potential problem after he pushes his pawn. Because now he's moved this pawn, he's opened up this diagonal, right? Look at the queen. She's in line with my queen, and she's undefended. So for the second game in a row, I get a discovered attack and win my opponent's queen. Bishop e5 check. He has to... He could have just taken the bishop. This guy's clearly either he's not been to bed tonight, or he's up late and drunk or high, or I don't know, but he could have just taken the bishop. But anyway, he loses his queen, and now he still doesn't decide to take the bishop because he's in full dumbass mode. And so I think, well, let's save the bishop. I'm plus 16 at this point. He develops, and now I like this move. Bishop takes pawn on h6. If he recaptures, I get this knight with my queen, and it's all going to end in tears. So the point here is you have to spot that the pawn on g7 is the only defender of the knight, and it's the only defender of h6. I am attacking h6, and I am attacking the knight. That is what you need to know. Therefore, if I take h6 and the pawn recaptures, yeah, then I get the knight, so I win a pawn for free. Okay, he figures this out, so he moves his king here. So I take this pawn now, attacking both the knight a second time and now the rook. And because now, if king takes, I have queen takes f6, check, and there is actually mate in 4, whatever happens from here. King retreats there. I push my pawn up now. The queen g5 was better, apparently. So, but because now he takes, I have queen g5, king into the corner, queen here, and there's only one legal move. King's got to go there, and it's going to be mate in 1. That is it. But an important lesson, I think, you know, it doesn't matter who you're playing, why you're playing, when you're playing. Don't do this, right? The principles are there for a reason, and the computer here is backing it up, right? The computer is saying, control the center, develop your pieces, develop your knights in particular, just play naturally, and you should find yourself in a better situation. Now, like I say, this isn't the most dumbass opening of all, but considering the how my opponent managed to find ways to layer, he had layer upon layer of dumbassery in this game. I think it justified its place in the dumbass openings hall of shame. So there you go. Thought you'd enjoy that. Just remember, leave these damn pawns alone, right, at the beginning of the game. Sometimes it's the right thing to do to move these pawns, but it's quite rare. Okay? Another reason is that your king may want to castle on one of these sides, and as we saw, like with this h6 pawn in particular, it became a target. I was just able to grab that pawn with my bishop later on in the game, and he couldn't recapture. Leave them there, right? They'll do a good job. Leave them where, if your king castles, your king is at least defending these pawns. All right, so that's a useful lesson, I hope, for all the beginners out there. Don't do this. Don't be like this guy. Thanks for watching. See you later.